There we go.
Hey,
how's it going?
pretty good, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Not
Thank
too
you for
bad.
giving us some of your time today.
Yeah, I'm glad it's working out finally here.
Yeah, basically what we've been doing is we've started going through kind of different genres of films since since the start of the pandemic. Basically, we did comedies and we did action, and now we're on to adventure films. And myself and Jack personally, Back to the Future 2 is one of our favorite films. So we're talking about it on next week's episode, and obviously a few better people to speak to than someone that was in front of the camera.
Nice. Yeah, that shoot was an adventure for me.
Yeah. Well, when we were doing some reading to kind of go back to where it all started, I know you were doing acting before Back to the Future, and we read that you started out doing some kind of lookalike work. Is that accurate?
No, I didn't start out doing lookalike work. I started acting as a kid in school, and my parents didn't really want me to go into show business because they were around people in show business and saw what a hard life it was for them. My dad ran these private clubs where Omar Sharif and Lauren Green from Bonanza and Don Adams, all these celebs would play cards and gamble and such, and they didn't want me doing what they saw a lot of actors very frustrated drinking and gambling and so on and so forth. But I was really driven to it from a young age. And once I got out of high school, they couldn't tell me so much what to do. So I started getting on sets doing just little bit and background work in films like The Rose and FM and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And I Want to Hold Your Hand, which was ironically Robert Zemeckis directing. But that kind of work was not so fulfilling. So I went after training so I could be taken more seriously, going to the American Conservatory Theater and University. And while doing my studying, I fell into an opportunity to screen test for a lead in an adventure film called The Genius, which later became War Games. And Martin Brest, the original director on that, had told an agent about me, and she pursued me and signed me, and I headed back to Los Angeles and Hollywood. And the first co-star role I got was really an adventure. I was working with George Miller at the helm on that fourth episode, the remake of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet with John Lithgow on the airplane, in the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah.
And I worked through the early 80s on various television shows and films like Johnny Dangerously and Crackers with Louis Malle. Then some TV, The Scarecrow, Mrs. King, and Max Headroom and Dallas and such. And in about 87, I fell into an opportunity to play Stanley Laurel at Universal Tours in Hollywood. And that's when I started doing the lookalike work. And while I was doing that lookalike work in latter part of 88, the agent that helped me get that job was supplying stand-in and photo doubles to films. And he called me up and asked if I knew who Crispin Glover was. And I said, sure. I did a film with him before he got the first Back to the Future film at the American Film Institute. And inquiring further, I'm not the same height or weight as Crispin, but he thought I was close enough to get a meeting with me, because as soon as I heard what he was fishing about, I thought it might be for the sequel to Back to the Future, which I knew was in pre-production.
Yeah.
And when I saw the first film, because I knew Crispin, I was really proud of him. I was, I had his phone number and tried to stay in touch, and I thought he knocked it out of the park. I thought he was really great. So I met with the assistant directors, who then told the director, Robert Zemeckis, about me, and then sent me to casting where I had to audition, and then started fitting for the prosthetic makeup effects. And at that point, I still didn't know. They led me to believe I was going to be a photo double or stand-in.
Yeah.
And I didn't know until really the 11th hour that Crispin wasn't coming back to do his role.
No way. So how did they break the news to you? What was the kind of conversation? How did that go?
it actually didn't really happen with production necessarily. It was the makeup artist, Ken Chase, who designed the makeup for the first films, and then he designed for the second films. They actually got fired. Like the first day of shooting, he kind of mouthed off to the director.
Yeah, that's signing your own death warrant there a little bit.
It was odd, but what was going on was that Ken was doing a test of the makeup effects on me, and he said to me, he said, Crispin's out. I was like, what? And he said, Crispin is no longer in the picture. You're going to be George. And I was like,
whoa,
how are they going to make that work? I mean, I've got these makeup effects, and I thought because of the young George makeup effects, they needed George in multiple locations at the same time, like they did with Michael. But then sure enough, at the end of that week, I got a call from my agent who said Universal Casting called, and they are in fact offering you the role. And I got a script and read it, and I was like, well, okay, if they don't have Crispin, it's gonna be weird. But and I called Crispin when I was up for the role, saying, say a good word for me, I need the work. And, of course, I didn't hear from him until he was ready to sue for the makeup they put me in. And I think because of my photos and tales, he settled his case out of court, which kind of backfired for me for getting more work at Universal. Or anyway, so but it was an adventure. It was a hell of a ride, being like the adopted kid in this new cast. Me and Elizabeth Shue, who was quite lovely. She was really a lot of fun to hang out with.
So kind of stepping into that role, I mean, you haven't been given a lot of time there to prepare at all. You've kind of been thrown in literally at the deep end.
Kind of. There was some, like, I don't want to say triage, but Zemeckis really didn't know me except from the short screen test for the makeup, in which Dean Cundy said to Zemeckis, I think we have Crispin without the trouble. And I was like, oh. But a lot of the lines, for example, that were given in the script as if Crispin were delivering them were divvied up between Michael and Leah in the scenes that I'm in. And a lot of people, assumed that I was hung upside down to obscure that it wasn't Crispin, and that actually isn't the case. And I found the actual reason recently that apparently on the first, Crispin was not able to always hit his marks for camera focus.
Right.
He'd overshoot or undershoot or whatever the case may be. So the two Bobs decided in the sequel they would have George hung upside down, made up the story of his back getting wrenched from the flying car that fell out of the sky while he's playing golf. And so they put him in this ortholev, which meant that he had to be on a track that he could not veer from, which I endured, hung upside down. And that way they'd have him hit his marks every time, because he wasn't in control of it.
Yeah. So obviously being upside down for a large portion there, and did you have to do any training for that, or were you kind of like let
Oh no,
down?
there was no time for training. No.
It seemed like if all the blood rushed to your head, you were just out.
I think they waited till the last possible moment to see if Crispin would come to his senses and accept the 100,000 they were offering him or whatever. But he wanted to hold out for his million, and apparently script approval. But no, I didn't train for that, except I just was so thrilled to have the work and be on such a great set with such a wonderfully talented family that I endured it. And they didn't, of course, like to get me down all the time in between takes and such. So they built a ladder with a board on it and say, do a sit-up. So I do a sit-up and had it under me, and I'd lie back and kind of twirl my thumbs as everyone would go off and have coffee, and I'd be alone on the set, just lying there. I have photos and such. Would you like to see some of those behind the scenes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, definitely.
How long did it take for you to do that, film that scene?
Well, that scene, I think it was over the course of 2 weeks,
Okay.
and the hours were really long.
They didn't leave you there for the 2 weeks at least.
Yeah, let me pull up some of these photos I have here, and the 1 week I remember I had a 19-hour day, I had a 21-hour day, and even a 26-hour long day in that same week, which
Insane.
Yeah, that's
you know,
a bit of a marathon.
yeah, it was like a marathon, and the time, the turnaround time was often less than 8 hours
Mhm.
before I'd have to be back in the makeup chair. The makeup alone took about 4 hours to put on. So if they wanted me on set, say by 9 in the morning, I'd have to be in the makeup chair by 4:30 a.m.
Jeez.
And they'd give me a half-hour break after a couple hours of putting on makeup glue.
That was nice of them.
Yeah, and I could stretch a little bit, and then I go back in to be painted, finished up. And if you could allow me to share screen, I could do this. So
It should.
I'd be ready to go at 9 a.m. if we're shooting during the day, and then it's telling me I'm a host disabled attendee screen sharing. So the
I
host
pressed something beforehand that it should have allowed it. I mean, let me have a quick look, see if there's anything I can do.
This is the perils of modern times. This happens at least 4 or 5 times a day at work.
Yeah, I have learned, it's been quite a learning curve. I started doing Zoom shows right away when the pandemic hit a year ago. Fans did a remake of part 2 called
Really?
Project 88, where a director producer named Taylor Morden out of Oregon cut up the film in 88 scenes and then divvied them out to people who wanted to remake those scenes during lockdown. And so they had 1 week supposedly to do it with whatever resources they had in their homes. So I did a scene in that. And then another group did a Project 85, where they remade part 1. So both of those you can find on YouTube. And then I started working with a group out of London called The Show Must Go Online. And they were kind of ready to go with Zoom technology and did all of Shakespeare's canon over the course of the summer and plus. And then they also, the first one that I did with them was as if Shakespeare had written Back to the Future. And I played Doc Brown in it. And you can find that on YouTube. So that's
I've seen that on Audible. I've not listened. I wasn't too sure kind of what it was, but I think there's an audio recording of it online as well.
I think Ian Drescher, the writer of that, has an audio version. The highlight version that we did for The Show Must Go Online is on YouTube, and it's called Get Thee Back to the Future. And
it should let you share screen now. I think I've mastered it.
Yeah, baby, we're in business.
Nice.
That's the first time I've done that.
So let's see. Can you see this here?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
That's that ladder I was telling you about.
Crikey.
And Dan from ILM here is my special effects handler. You can see Zemeckis in the background there.
That's amazing.
So you're on this for almost an entire day, just kind of hanging around.
Yep, pretty much. It was, it was grueling and hard, but at the same time, it was also incredibly exciting for me. And so I didn't complain much. I did get, I think Bob Gale once paid for me to go get massaged. Thank you, Bob. So you can see.
At least it's like a memorable scene. Like if you'd done all that work and then nobody even remembered that being in the film, then I imagine it would be a lot more brutal looking back.
Yeah, well, we shot a lot more than what made the final cut. Because it wasn't Crispin, I think they really pulled back on what I did. I came up with a few lines like outside the front door, how's granddad's little pumpkin? Because Michael, as Marlene, her her hot pants were stuffed and, you know, had a little orange color there and made her butt look like a pumpkin. So I came up with that line. But as you can see, here's the Back to the Future behind the scenes part 2, where you can actually see that we're in the sound stage, the Fruit Please device, and my hang-in.
That's amazing.
Leah will hate me for showing her in a robe, but let's see if I get some other shots up here that are interesting. If you want, I also have footage of the makeup of me in the makeup chair, and also
yeah, definitely.
With the C-downs.
So we're kind of going through, obviously, that scene there. What was probably the most memorable moment for you whilst on set, do you think? If you could kind of pinpoint one.
Memorable moments or being on set?
Well, yeah, like what's your most memorable? When you look back on your time with Back to the Future, is there any moments that you think of and you think, wow?
Oh, there are so many. I liked, you know, hanging out with the other stars when I wasn't shooting. You know, Elizabeth and I hung out in my dressing room for a bit. I hung out with Billy Zane in his dressing room for a while and listened to music and sang and told stories. Hung out with Michael, talked him into buying his farm.
Really?
Yeah, he said, "Hey, tell me what you think of this," and put on this tape that a realtor had taken of the farm with the long-haired sheep and the old barn built in the 1700s or whatever. Anyway, and I asked him, I said, you know, have you seen it in person? He said, yeah. And what do you think of it? He goes, it's okay. And what he really liked was that the people up there, when he went to the corner store, the town's main mercantile, that they didn't treat him any differently than anyone else, that he wasn't a star necessarily. And that was refreshing. He liked that. I said, well, then you should get it. And I believe he did.
I guess that's like super important for kind of mindset, I guess, because you can kind of get caught up in it all, can't you? It's nice to have that kind of reset of, this is what life is like. I'm
not seeing, do you see Laurel and Hardy on this one?
It's just loading up, it says.
Yeah, it's just
on my screen.
Oh, okay, that's probably not going to work. But I was going to show you the lookalike work I fell into, playing Stan Laurel at Universal, and then I played Charlie Chaplin and Groucho Marx. So if you went to Universal Studios between 1987 and 2001, and had your photo with any of Laurel and Hardy or what have you, it might be me.
I guess a link a lot of people would make is going from that and kind of stepping into the role as George. And I didn't know if it made a big difference to you in kind of the ease of settling into the role, because even just watching the first one back, it's been played in a way where it's kind of just his overall being is so like exaggerated, like the way he walks and the way he talks and even just the expressions. So I guess when you're going into the second time, you at least have the foundation of things that you can pinpoint.
Oh yeah, so when it was obvious that they needed me to do a spot on imitation, Bob Gale arranged for me to get all of Crispin. Bob gave me copies of the screen test, makeup tests with Leah and Crispin and Tom and Crispin solo, so I could get his essence. They knew that I had to nail his physicality and voice and such. And so for me, it was both educational and entertaining. It was really great to see at one point, Tom and Crispin are doing their old age from part one and standing in a doorway looking at each other or whatever, wherever outside the production. And Tom says, what? McFly, what is that? Some sort of Irish bug? And, that wasn't obviously in the script, but it was adapted for the script because it was so funny. They came up with a lot of stuff watching Crispin and Leah develop their characters with, I think it was Neil Kent and one of the producers' nephew as Marty. Pretty fascinating to see them develop the specific idiosyncrasies of the characters. It was fun. And through that, I was able to get, where he had sort of this center of gravity in his head, which caused him to lean forward, and hey, you know, he has this odd placement of his voice. He has this gravity bass, which is pretty strong, but leaning forward, you know, and finding that Crispin element was handy for me, not only in recreating, of course, the Enchantment Under the Sea dance and the fight with Biff out in the parking lot, but also if you look at the bonus material, the pizza scene where George actually, I got to rotate my axis for pizza for dinner. And in that, I do a golf swing and go 4. So I get to do, you know, tribute to Crispin's laugh and all that. But unfortunately, you know, even though it got laugh on set and other things I did got laughs, like eating the banana upside down from Fruit Please because the peel kept slapping me in the face. It was very funny. That all got cut. But so goes show business. You know, they obviously didn't want to bring too much attention to me because they knew that they were in a gray area with the makeup and that he might sue, and like sure enough he did.
It's weird.
Oh,
It's weird for you because obviously you do such a good job that there's people out there that genuinely don't realize that it's a different actor from the first one to the second one. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for you that
yes,
I mean, you want your name there, but also you do want to do it justice.
There are a lot of people out there who still don't know, which is pretty shocking, you know, 30 years after the fact.
Yeah.
So here's, I'll share a couple more photos here. If I can find my share screen, but here we go. So you see that's that.
Yeah.
And hide the sidebar. There we go. Took about 4 hours a day to put this on, and it really doesn't look face on that much like Crispin, even though it's probably made from his life mask. But from the side, this is a
spot on.
Yeah, absolutely dead on the money.
This is a Polaroid continuity photo.
Yeah.
Did it take the same amount of time for the 17-year-old, the 47 and 77 for the prosthetics?
Yeah, the same time as the old age makeup, about 4 hours.
Yeah. Sorry, Jack.
I was just going to say.
Oh, good old Elizabeth. She really is a fun girl. I like her.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Do you take it as a compliment that you've played the part so well that people don't realize it's another actor, or do you kind of wish that it had been marketed a bit more? Or
yeah, I had high hopes. I had done fairly well, co-starring with Clint Eastwood in Pale Rider and guest starring on various TV shows, and was looking to really step up in my career. And I saw this as a really great opportunity to promote it. But then every chance I had to promote it, I found that I was thwarted by Universal. I couldn't get my footage. I couldn't get my photos. It was kind of a nightmare. And then obviously seeing that Crispin was dealt a bad hand with reusage of footage that he didn't approve of or agree to, and then using his likeness on me, it just wasn't fair. And when it turned out, became public that I had spoken with him, it blew up in my face. So it kind of was bad until really the fans discovered me. I mean, I've continued acting. The Hollywood scene just got too much for me with the traffic and agents that were not doing much for me. So I got out of Hollywood and continue working mostly in the independent world, and then go back to LA when projects that want me there to shoot. I still have my apartment down in Santa Monica. So, and in a way, I was getting really great roles in the independent film world outside of Hollywood, and then also working on stage as well. I played the Igor character and Marty Feldman's role in the Young Frankenstein the musical.
Yeah.
I grew my pandemic fur once before to play the Robin Williams role on a staged live version of The Fisher King, which was really rewarding. Great production. So I've kept working. I got to play Mark Twain in a movie dramatization of his trip to the Holy Land in Europe in 1867, which was the basis for his first book, The Innocents Abroad. And that was great for me because I also do living history. Since I was young, back in '73, I started doing Renaissance fairs and Victorian Charles Dickens fairs and such. And I love that sort of thing, and educating while entertaining. I did a thing called Time Travel Weekends, where I played an old medicine man, snake oil salesman,
Yeah.
and then switched over to playing Mark Twain. And now I'm actually writing 8 episodes of a series called Mark Twain's American History. And that's the reason I'm growing this pandemic fur so long.
Yeah.
I'm going to play the old miner that tells Twain's character the jumping frogs of Calaveras County tale. And so I'm going to be this old crotchety miner telling a story, and then I'll shave it and turn around and be Mark Twain, listening to it, going, "Get me out of here!"
I think it's great that you've really kind of embraced the fan side of Back to the Future as well, because it has lived on. I mean, myself and Jack, I don't mean to say it this way, but we weren't born when the first Back to the Future films came out, but we're both such big fans of it, and we went to see the reruns of the we went to see the reruns of the trilogy in 2015 when they did an anniversary show over here. And I've seen, and you've mentioned that you've been in these fan projects and things, so it is really cool to see that you've really embraced that side of it.
I love being discovered by the fans. I had really been pretty much in obscurity, but in about, I guess, about the early 90s, 93 or 4, I had one Uber fan track me down up at Universal and interview me there, which is online, and I've grown a lot since then on my understanding of the whole situation that I had gone through. And old exploitive media likes to take sound bites and stir up trouble with that old interviewer. Anyway, but it was the DeLorean Owners Association found me. A gentleman named Daniel Deutsch brought me to my first DeLorean meeting or convention, and I've done a handful of those as a celebrity guest, and sometimes as their MC or auctioneer or what have you. I've even performed as Charlie Chaplin at one of my first ones there. It was a lot of fun. And then, since about 2009, I guess, I started doing the fan cons. And you mentioned, the anniversary year, that special anniversary year of 2015. Jason, the owner of London Film and Comic Con, brought me over for this wonderful reunion where we had, 13 of us? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 of us of the cast members from the trilogy came over for that wonderful reunion.
Brilliant.
Yes, great.
Yeah, and then the cosplayers, the fans knocked me out. This is the German Biff.
Nice.
And the German Marty, a lovely gal I know, Catherine, yes. As you can see, backstage, Jason had us all sign this guitar, which we auctioned off for a lot of money for Michael's charity. And that was the first show that Michael did for the fans. He did arrive unannounced at a Hollywood show 6-7 years earlier, but this is the first one that he came to as billed as attending. So that was really cool to have a room full of several thousand hanging on our every word and getting that cred. was very important for me. It was nice to be able to share that with the cast members. I still wish that Crispin would do it. You know, most of the cast really loved Crispin, and I liked him too. I was a friend, I thought. But once he got his settlement, I've never heard from him again. He's never mentioned my name. But it's kind of sad, because I think the fans would just adore that he would, you know, let go of the bitterness, and Bob Gale would let go of his bitterness and do something for the Michael's charity. I think that would be really outstanding. But you know, I think both sides are still butting heads.
Yeah.
Life's
It was
too
cool
short.
for us to see it in the cinema, just because we hadn't had that experience before, and it was packed out when we saw it there, and they literally just played 1, 2, and 3 back to back to back, and people were still like going all in. I wondered with the second film if there was anything in particular that was kind of created to be for the future that people on set thought was crazy then, that perhaps now when we passed that, even, I mean, we've had the lace up shoes and things like that. I know we don't quite have the 4-second pizza or whatever it was yet, but anything that was deemed to be mental then that perhaps isn't so mental now.
I'm not sure what the question is, Lou. Could
No, I wondered if there was anything that was deemed to be futuristic at the time of filming that perhaps wouldn't seem so crazy now, kind of looking back.
Oh yeah, well, quite a few things.
Yeah.
You know, I, as soon as I saw the set for the McFly home of 2015 and saw the effect that they were going to do with the television with the multiple screens, I was like, oh yeah, I could see that coming. I could see that being real. The fax machine on the wall, I think we had fax machines already, so that wasn't so much a revelation. But the projected image out the window, where there was really just a brick wall, we had a terrible time actually with that effect. That was one of those days that went over 20 hours,
Really?
because the effect when Lorraine pulls the window cover up, the shade up, you could see the flicker of the, you know, the strobe of the projector, the effect. And so I think Zemeckis sent us to our third dinner or something, and while we were at the dinner, he had figured it out and said, Leah, you know, just pull it forward, do your line to camera, which will cheat, and we'll get the projector off and then let go. And sure enough, we got it, and we're able to go home after 26 hours, whatever it was. The hydrator, the ortholev, the watches we wore, the controls I had, the various things, that set was art directed within an inch of its life. It was amazing, the attention to detail. I have I could dig them up and send them to you. I have a lot of the details of a lot of those props and the set. And it was really fun to see, you know, the finished product, holographic shark and the flying cars. I went and visited the set of Hill Valley 2015 too, and I remember bringing my 9-year-old nephew from Oklahoma, and who got to meet Michael J. Fox and nearly crapped his pants. You know, it was so fun to see Darlene in the Spike makeup, because she already has a green eye and a blue eye, and then they put red contacts over her eyes, and she was beautiful to look at. I was just stunned by, you know, the future of wardrobe, and then knowing what they were doing with the hoverboards, watching a bit of that. It was really exciting, and it was, I think, refreshing that, because a lot of sequels, at least at that time, were kind of rehashes or didn't really cover a lot of new ground, or were done with a lot of care. Whereas this time you had such a great writing team of the two Bobs, and so much money invested that they really didn't have to rush. And when they went into production, they of course were often under the gun, because it's what, $50,000 a minute or whatever cut off. At that time they were spending, but they had a lot of years to think about it, to prepare, and just a crack team of artistic craftspeople all through the entire crew. It was just really lovely to be a part of that, and I was very proud of being on that set. Once again, though, I was at the same time disappointed that well, so it goes. So I have that footage if you'd like to see of getting
Yeah,
into,
sure.
Yeah,
into the
definitely.
makeup. Once again, give me a sec to set this up here. I think
Right.
I could do this like that and play it like this. So the first bit is silent here in the makeup trailer. Like I said, it was 4 hours. Sonny Berman of the Berman Brothers, who just passed away 2 years ago, is working on me with Nancy Vasta. Really lovely people. His brothers produced lots of the Star Trek series, did all those makeups. In the background there is Mike Mills, who was foreman on Beetlejuice with Kenny Myers or Marvin Westmore. Which one is that? I think that's Marvin Westmore, the famous family working on Leah. And the crack team of makeup artists working on us was like the who's who of the makeup world. A gentleman named Zoltan and his wife, who got the Academy Award for Mask, came in and worked on us. The just lovely long hours that we spent. It was refreshing because they were like our outlets for talking about the excitement of being there, and they were just as excited as we were.
I imagine it's kind of like when you go to a barber and you're in the chair for a really long time and you've got to try and find new things to talk about constantly. Whereas if you're in the chair for like 4 hours,
Yeah,
I guess sometimes.
You're letting me have a little quick stretch and break here, maybe have a bite before finishing up with the wig and the painting.
That's crazy how you go from that to that.
Yeah, well, the first footage was the old age, and this is, of course, the young. And the first stuff we shot was the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
My darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was awkward for the first day or two that Zemeckis and others would refer to me as Crispin.
Really? Quite literally stepping into his shoes.
Yeah, it was weird. But eventually, you know, they saw how hard I was working and started calling me by my real name or hey you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
yeah.
kind of like memorability wise then. So obviously we've spoken to quite extent about the scene where you hung upside down. What was your favorite scene to shoot that you most enjoyed?
I really like shooting the fight in the parking lot. Tom was really fun to work with. He's a very funny man, as you probably know. Let me see if I and he you know, worked with me very seriously. When you work on stage combat, it's like choreographing a dance. You know, it's very dangerous, and you don't want to take any chances. So we worked well into the night, all night long, and you know, had to recreate, of course, everything very precisely while working with the new camera blocking and business that's going on around us. And you know, he was consummate pro, and I really enjoyed hitting the marks that needed to be done, both with physical and the fight choreography, and also the vocal. I actually got to do, "Hey, you, get your damn hands off her," you know, that stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you're working really hard and you have the support of all the background in costume and makeup and character, and such a hardworking crew, it's, you get sort of outside of yourself and it becomes bigger than you, and a real labor of love, and I love that. That's one of the things about movie making I just adore, is the teamwork that is involved, and then the magic. If the story has that capability of transporting and being magical, of seeing that happen. I've had it on several of these independent projects where a director might not see that the god smiled and a happy accident has happened, and I have to point out to them that you know, that take in particular, or this business that has happened, is actually supporting the story, and you may not have realized that because it's not in the script. And I'll actually use my notoriety or celebrity to stop the action and take the director aside and say, you know, when she kissed, when I kissed her, no, when she kissed my character and came away with my makeup on her face to go get married, you know, that was really wonderful because it's symbolic of this love that's being transferred, that she transfers to her new husband. That was on one project. Another one where this, after I threw up in this one scene in this other indie, and a little puppy dog out of nowhere comes and starts eating up the vomit. It was disgusting, but incredibly funny. And I begged the director to consider to use that take, which he did. And it gives a wonderful laugh. You know, these different magic moments when a director is open to it. And Zemeckis was open to various things like the banana, eating the banana upside down and slapping on the face, but it ultimately didn't stay in. How's Granddad's Little Pumpkin, you know, just a few things like that is part of the magic, and that I love, that collaboration on set.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, thank you for giving us so much of your time today. We really appreciate it, and it's been great to speak to you.
Yeah, I you know, think of, since you're doing adventure films, I was trying to think what other adventures. The exciting first co-star role I ever had was on, like I mentioned, George Miller's episode of the remake of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, in Twilight Zone movie. And that was another case where the director said, if in rehearsal you feel like you want to do something, come up with a line or a bit of business, let's do it. And I came up with, you know, maybe 6 lines. That way, if 3 of them got cut, but nonetheless, it was so thrilling to be on that adventure. And it, I think, hands down, is the more exciting, the most exciting episode of that, the 4 stories in that film. On Pale Rider, I got the adventure of going into the Old West and playing cowboy with Clint, and you know, those are memories I cherish. I have a lot of stories from all those films, so if you get to them, have me back on. I got more photos and stories to share.
Absolutely.
Definitely. But again, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time.
Sure. Hopefully I'll get over there. I've had inquiries from like Edinburgh and Liverpool and various other Comic Cons. Hopefully London Comic Con will bring me back. And when I do, you know, I'll try to get a hold of you and let you know so you can announce on your show.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
absolutely. Well,
All right,
thank
Jack.
you. And
Sure, Luke.
yeah,
A
hope you enjoy
pleasure.
the rest of your day.
Hey, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah,
All right, be well.
Thank
take
you.
care.
Yeah.
Bye.